Look at the Torah Or. Bereshis, Bereshis, page Vav, second column, 15 lines in the top approximately. Okay, now the Rebbe is explaining the whole concept of brachas. In the first base of English, they didn't have brachas. The second base of English, they instituted brachas. So he says, because in the first base of English, the neshamas were very great. They had emunah, they internalized the level of emunah. So therefore they didn't need bracha to verbalize, to awaken the person to get it. In second base of English, though, the Jews were on a much lower level. Okay, so he says, because the person comes, the neshamas come from the pneumius, from the internal levels of Hashem, meaning it was the ultimate purpose of creation, unlike angels, which is only the external purpose of creation. Therefore, only a Yid can bring down, internalize this level of godliness within themselves, and as he's going to explain in a second, then in the rest of the world. Okay? And he says, then after we say Hashem Elokeinu, that it becomes one with us, it becomes ours, then we say Melech HaElam Shala Elam Ugili Malchusi Bilvad, that we reveal that there's only the sovereignty of Hashem, because a Melech B'layam V'nei Aidei HaBracha, through this bracha that we say Mamshech Bracha V'amshach, like we said yesterday. Bracha means to bring down. We make a bracha means we're bringing down godliness into ourselves and through ourselves into the rest of the world. The Izgili Erein Tzal B'nefesh Klal Yisrael, that the revelation of godliness should be in the by the Jews, Sheteschazek Emunas Hashem B'libam, that it should be strengthened, the belief of Hashem in our hearts, Ki ilu reya, as if you see, like the expression seeing is believing. In other words, the ultimate purpose of everything is to internalize the belief in one Hashem to such an extent that we actually see and feel godliness. And therefore our whole life will be only based on what Hashem wants us to do. Like the Gemara says, Rabbi Yechon Zakkai on his deathbed, the students asked him to give us advice before you go. So he said, you should fear Hashem as much as you fear a human being. So he said, that's it? Shouldn't we fear Hashem more? He said, Halavai, it should only be that way. I'm paraphrasing. If a policeman the policeman is watching you, you're not going to go through the red light. You're not going to rob a bank if you know the police is there, because you know people are watching you. He says, at least picture Hashem at least as much as a human being watching you. Of course, it's much more. So he said, when a Jew internalizes this level of emunah within them, they feel it, so then they're not going to do anything wrong. And that's what the purpose of a bracha is, to internalize the real level of the neshama that comes from the essence of Hashem, to internalize that level within us. Is the person who makes the bracha, which is Eisa, a mitzvah, that does the mitzvah. In other words, in order to, he's talking about the brachas before mitzvah. He's not talking about the bracha before eating. That's called Bereshis Nenem. Bereshis Nenem means when you make a bracha, when you eat, you're basically thanking Hashem for the food. Bracha of a mitzvah is, before you do a mitzvah, you make a bracha. What's the purpose of that bracha? It's not thanking Hashem for the mitzvah. That bracha is to bring down that level of godliness that we're bringing down through the mitzvah, that we should feel it internally. And he says, Fisha mitzvah same kelim. All the mitzvahs are the vessels, lashros earnings of mamish, to reveal this level of godliness, ubahem val yodam, and through them and in them, mamshich earnings of lamata, we bring down godliness down here. The purpose of a mitzvah is to reveal godliness in the world. Now, in order to reveal godliness in the world, you need a vessel, because if there's no vessel, it's like you light a lighter, there's the spark, but it's not going to stay because there's no fuel to keep it. So the purpose of a mitzvah is to keep godliness, or bring down godliness in the world and keep it in the world. Now, each mitzvah, why do we have 248 positive mitzvahs? Because each mitzvah is a vessel for a different level of godliness that mitzvah is a vessel for. In other words, Hashem could have given us, instead of 248, He could have been given us 5, 10, 15. To connect it, He could give us 15 mitzvahs and finish. So Kabbalah and Chassidus explain, no, because there's 248 different ways that godliness needs to be revealed in the world. Therefore, He gave us 248 positive mitzvahs, because each mitzvah brings down a unique level of godliness, and it's a vessel for that level of godliness that no other mitzvah does. Just like the 248 is likened to the limbs of a person. Every limb in the person reveals a different aspect of the soul that the other limb doesn't. The eyes reveal the power of sight. The nose reveals the power of smell. The mouth reveals the power of talking, whatever. So every limb in the person's body reveals a different aspect of the neshama that no other limb reveals. So the same thing, there's 248 positive mitzvahs, which most of them we don't have today. A lot deal with the Beis HaMikdash and those things. But we still have a bunch. So we still have positive mitzvahs that we need to bring down that level of godliness by doing it. So we bring down the mitzvahs we bring down godliness by doing the mitzvah. But the bracha is to internalize it within ourselves. And that's what we say, Asher Kidshanu b'mitzvaysav. Asher, what does the word asher? Means daha, because, meaning shun nesin as tam l'davar. Koleimad lefi shekidshanu b'mitzvaysav. Because asher kidshanu means because. Because Hashem sanctified us with this mitzvahs. V'tzivanu loshen safsev is kashus. And v'tzivanu mitzvah means, as there it says, binding and connection. Therefore, we have the koyach. Therefore, we have the ability to bring down that level of kedusha through the bracha. So basically, now the Rebbe is saying like this: what is the concept of a bracha? The concept of a bracha is, like we say, baruch, to bring down that level alokeinu, it's internalized in us, and then it becomes king of the world. And how is that? Because Hashem sanctified us by giving us this particular mitzvah, which is that particular vessel for that particular revelation of godliness, and we're the ones that bring down that godliness in the world.
What about those that don't have that? The one that
The what?
the bracha that Rabbi gave.
Yeah.
One doesn't have Asher.
Right, because that mitzvah, that bracha, is thanking Hashem. It's not bringing down godliness. We also say Baruch Atah Hashem. We're also bringing down that level of godliness by thanking Him. By thanking Him, that itself is a realization that Hashem runs the world.
I mean, ultimately, the answer to this is Mashiach, but all through the years, all the Jews, all the Tzaddikim, there have been so many mitzvot, and bringing down godliness into the world. At what time? I mean, how much is the...
Because it's needed to have the straw that breaks the camel's back.
As much as the...
For the ultimate revelation of godliness, which is Mashiach, the ultimate revelation, the essence of Hashem will be revealed. The longer, let's look at the positive side of everything. The longer the exile, the longer the galus, the more Torah mitzvahs we're doing, even when it's very dark, when it's more difficult to do mitzvahs, that itself is adding unbelievably great amounts of kedusha that will be revealed when Mashiach comes.
So each mitzvah adds to the back of the camel more.
Adds to the brick, and adds to the bank account, yes. But for the revelation of godliness, which is the essence of Hashem, that you need a lot of avodah, a lot of Torah mitzvahs. And the more difficult it is to do the mitzvah, the more rewarding it is, the more godliness you're bringing down. Because the harder it is to do a mitzvah, the more subservient you become to Hashem, the more batal you become. If it's easy to do a mitzvah, I enjoy it, then I'm not giving of myself. I enjoy it. When a person hates doing a mitzvah, or we live in a world where it's so dark, it's difficult to do a mitzvah, that's where the mitzvah counts more. That's why those guys didn't bring Mashiach, and we will.
It seems like if you're not a keli and you bring the mitzvah to the keli, it's more precious than someone.
Correct. When the Rebbe came out with the Tefillin campaign, the Rebbe called it as a smag from the Rishonim. He says Hashem has more pleasure when a Rosh Gamor, complete Rosh, puts on Tefillin than when a Tzaddik does. If you think about it, it makes sense. Tzaddik wants to put on Tefillin. Like the guy that came in to the Tzemach Tzedek complaining, I don't want to learn. Yeah. I don't want to learn. So the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, I have a bigger problem than you. I do want to learn. So therefore, when I learn, because I want to learn, it's not as great as you who don't want to learn, who doesn't want to learn, and you learn. It's all about work. Therefore, you can't, only Hashem could judge. Only Hashem could judge. You can have a guy doing a lot of mitzvahs, right? But for him, he wants to do them. So he does a lot of mitzvahs. Yeah? But he's not breaking himself to do the mitzvah. Then you have a guy that hates doing a mitzvah, and he does it. He breaks himself, and he does the mitzvah. In a certain level, that one mitzvah is greater than all the mitzvahs of that other guy that wanted to do it. Because this guy served Hashem, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, it's not a question of how much, 100 versus 101. If somebody learns 100 times, 100 hours, but he wants to learn 100 hours, then he's not serving God. Evet, he's not servitude. He's not breaking himself. And a guy that doesn't want to learn and breaks himself and learns for an hour, in a certain respect, that guy is serving Hashem. In order for the finite to reach the infinite, we are finite, Hashem is infinite, we need to break the limitations of our own to reach the infinite. Now, how does a person break? It's all relative, relatively speaking. How does a person break their finite, natural level to reach the infinite? There's only one way of reaching infinite, by breaking your nature.
Going out of Egypt.
Right, going out of Egypt, your boundaries and limitations. A person who wants to learn, who wants to do mitzvahs and does mitzvahs, yeah, he's great, he's connecting to Hashem. But the bottom line is, because he wants to do it, or she wants to do it, it's still within the realm of their nature. And therefore they'll never reach the infinite. In a certain level, obviously it's better to keep doing mitzvahs regardless, right? But in the level of serving Hashem, like you can learn 100 times, you're called not serving Hashem, because that's what your nature is. And therefore, we can't judge people. I don't know what you're breaking yourself, or what you want to do, what you don't want to do, me. I can only judge myself. I know what I should be doing, I don't do it, and I have to do more. I know I have to break my nature. Maybe you doing one mitzvah once is breaking your nature. That means in simple English like this. You go into the street and you stop a guy and say, you want to put on tefillin. Or you're in your office. You ask the guy, do you want to put on tefillin? Yeah? He doesn't do it. Now, he stops in the middle of the street. Yeah? He's going to an important meeting. He stops in the middle of the street and puts on tefillin for 1 minute. Yeah? In a certain respect, that's a higher level than the guy that puts on tefillin every day.
Higher level for him or higher level for
From him. From his level, because he broke his nature to do it.
Otherwise, the connection is connection.
Connection is connection. The question is, did you break yourself for that connection? That's the difference. That's the whole concept of being Eved Hashem. Because an Eved doesn't have a self-existence. The existence of the slave is the master. Okay, Vine Amr Yushalmi. It says in Yushalmi, Matbeya Kotzib Psech Babaruch, Veina Chesim Babaruch, Umatbeya Aruch Psech Babaruch, Chesim Babaruch. Okay, this is Yushalmi, it's brought down in Allah also. There's what's called in Allah long brachas and short brachas. Long doesn't mean how many lines the bracha is. Yushalmi says like this: a bracha that begins with Baruch and ends with Baruch is a long bracha. A bracha that either begins or ends with Baruch Atah, but doesn't both, it's called a short bracha. I'll give you an example. A Sheyatze is called a long bracha, because it begins Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam and ends Baruch Atah Hashem reifich al-basar. It begins with Baruch, ends with Baruch. So therefore it's called a long bracha. It's a longer bracha. A bracha that only has beginning or end, so that's called a short bracha. But let's say in the Shmoneh Esrei, so because you say Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avram Atah Gibor, that's still called a long bracha, because the Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avram, which ends the previous bracha, begins the next bracha, so it's like you have beginning and end of Baruch also. Okay, that's done. So he says, Lahav in Zeh, to understand what that means, long and short bracha is, Gam Lahav and Masha Amar Chesem, he says, it should have said Messiah. Yerushalmi should have said, begins with Baruch, Messiah ends with brachas. Chesem means it seals. It's a seal, chesima. It's a seal. As it's known, there's two levels. There's Alma des Kasya and Alma des Galya. There are the hidden worlds of godliness, and there's the revealed worlds of godliness. Alma des Galya. About the revealed worlds of godliness, it says, Misham Yipareh, there's going to be the separation, the river that came out from Eden. V'hoyel Arba Roshim. Arba Nahares, the four rivers, like he said before, corresponds with the four camps of the Shechina, the four Malachim, Shemistabesh, that comes into the world of Bria Tzir Nasiya. Ubishtalshis, we read the Samadregas, and by the descent of the levels, Madrega acha Madrega, level after level. When it comes into the Ayin Sun, the lower level of the constellations, Nasa Alma de Prur becomes a separate world, a world of separation, and then Yeshachid Nikala Klipis, then evil has its nourishment. Okay, let me explain what this means. There are revealed worlds and there's hidden worlds. It says hidden worlds means, like it says in the pasuk, there was the level of Eden. See, nowadays we call it Gan Eden. But at the beginning of Chumash, it says, Nahar Yitzim Eden, in this week's Parsha, yeah, the river went out of Eden to water the Gan. And the Medrash says there's Eden and there's Gan. Right? The river came out of Eden to water the Gan. And then the pasuk continues, Misham Yipared, and then it went separated to the four levels. Okay? So in Hasidic language, it means like this. Eden represents enjoyment. Okay, Eden represents godliness. Tainug. That's, in a certain level, called Atzilus. It's the highest spiritual world. Then from Atzilus, the river, Hamshacha, coming down, goes out of this level of Atzilus into the world of Bria. This world of Bria is where separation begins. Bria, by definition, means yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing, meaning it already feels itself to be a something. It doesn't feel its source. Therefore, it's called something from nothing. Not that the Chas v'Shalom comes from nothing, but from their perspective, they only see the me. They don't see where I came from. Okay? So you have yesh mi'ayin. That begins in the worlds of Bria. As it keeps coming down lower, this level of Kedusha, it keeps coming down lower, 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 lower. It goes down so low that evil can also get its nourishment from Kedusha. In the world of Atzilus, which is only Kedusha, evil doesn't exist. Cannot exist. Cannot, and therefore doesn't exist. Because it's all the world of total nullification, total bittul. Then it becomes into the worlds of Bria, the Nor, Yotzei Me'eden. And it comes into 4 divisions, which is the 4 levels of the Malachim. That becomes Pirud Misham Yipared. Then it becomes a level of separation from God.
In Bria it became 4. Correct.
Yes. Coming into Bria becomes 4. That's why Bria is Yesh Mi'ayin, something from nothing. It's not the Bittul of Atzilus. Atzilus is one with Hashem. Bria is already Yesh Mi'ayin. Then it comes down even lower, because Bria is matter. Then it comes into Yetzirah, which means form. It becomes more coarse, because now it has a form. And then it comes into Asiyah, which is even lower, into action. So then, that's level of Kedusha. When it comes down lower, 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 it can get to a point that evil can nourish from Kedusha.
So when you say boy gets their nourishment from the level of Makitim directly, which level is Makitim Levina or lower? It must be lower.
Lower.
It's lower.
Why does it become 4 and not 5 and not 3?
Because there's 4 camps of the Shekhinah, like we find the 12 tribes were divided into 4. There's a lot of 4s. 4 represents already space. Northwest, southeast. So the course keeps coming down. The problem is when it comes down, okay, because Jews are who they are, if they're not, and they internalize things, Kedusha, if there's no vessel, they don't get the Kedusha. But the Goyim, because they don't internalize it, so they don't need a vessel, so they get it, even though they don't deserve it.
Right.
Jews, you don't deserve it, you don't get it. Because Jews need to internalize it with the vessel. We don't do mitzvahs, we don't have it. The Goyim will have it. That's why in Golos, the Goyim are on top and the Jews are at the bottom.
But that which we're getting is a lower level of Makitim. That feeds the Kripa only.
Yeah, but it comes down, and that Makif level is a powerful level because it doesn't need a Keli.
Temporary.
But it's power and strength not of Kedusha, it's power and strength of evil.
Feeds evil.
Huh?
Feeds evil. It feeds evil.
Feeds evil. But who brings down that level of evil that evil can nourish itself from? We do. This way, what makes us go into Golus, schlepping Hashem with us in Golus? Our actions. So when we drag down godliness into Klippa, the evil gains by it. So the power of evil in the world is thanks to us, not our actions.
We bring it to the level that they can use it.
Correct. Therefore, we're in Golus and Hashem is in Golus. Hashem is in Golus. That level of godliness that wants to be uniquely only for Kedusha is now supporting evil.
So what you're trying to say is that
You're blocked. I can't see if you're asking. Yeah.
the more good and the more mitzvahs there are, the more evil there'll be?
No. The more mitzvahs we do, the less evil. When we don't do mitzvahs, then we're feeding evil.
Going back to what you said, there's been so much mitzvah and tzaddiks and
Obviously not enough. It's up to me and you to do the rest. Put in the finishing touches. The previous Rebbe in Tavshin Bey said, it's in 1942, he said, everything's ready, the uniform's on, everything's ready for Mashiach. We only have to polish the buttons. The uniform had to be polished. Said everything's there. All we have to do, the finishing touches, we have to polish the buttons. Later on, the Rebbe said that was also done already. What's needed now is for us to accept Mashiach, which means we have to live a life, a Mashiach lifestyle.
My sister, is there any way that the evil gets so bad that Mashiach comes?
No.
That's a Muslim belief.
It's a Gemara. The Gemara said Mashiach will come, kula chayv kula zakeh. If all Jews will be good, or all Jews will be bad. But it doesn't, the Rebbe explains that's not what it means. What the Gemara means, not everybody, everybody will be bad. It means that when Mashiach comes, it will be a clear definition what good is and what bad is. Biggest problem in the world today, we don't know what is called good or bad. I'll give you an example. What's going on now, they say it's good to kidnap kids and torture them and then kill them, and it's good. They say it's a mitzvah to do. Or people that do evil things. In their mind, it's a mitzvah. There's no clear-cut definition in the world of what good and bad is. Torah defines good and bad for all times. And Torah is the ultimate definer of what good and bad is.
The coming of Mashiach has nothing to do with the evil that the non-Jews do?